Now, they didn't have Zach Martin. So Zach Martin, their all-pro guard, was out because he flunked a COVID test. Obviously, he didn't study hard enough, but they were without him. And the bottom line is Ezekiel Elliott was probably their third or fourth best blocker on the night. I don't know what their tight ends were doing. They couldn't block anybody. Zeke was a great blocker. He wasn't a great runner, but now the Cowboys get horrible news. And the fact that they get Zach Martin back in time for the San Diego Chargers. I'm calling them San Diego. I don't care if they're in LA or not. They're the San Diego Chargers. But now they lose. Yeah, the Superchargers. Now they lose right tackle Lyle Collins, who flew, I guess, a drug test or something, or he didn't show up. I don't know. He gets suspended for 5 games. And now they're going to have Terrence Steele in there at right tackle, Jerry Jones says. And they're really this guy killed last season. Clarence, talk me down from the ledge on this one. I don't know how anybody feels good about Lyle Collins not playing on Sunday against the Chargers.
No, you don't feel good about it, but certainly you didn't feel good about going to that game last week without Zach Martin, who was their best offensive player. No one thought that line would hold up. No one thought they would hold up enough to throw 58 times and score that many points without Zach Martin. And so, yes, going into this game, you don't feel good about Terrence Steele, who we saw 14 times last year, starting at right tackle. But you do have Zach Martin back. You're going to give him some help. Certainly he's going against Joey Bosa, one of the top pass rushers in the league. Lord knows that this is not Jason Garrett. They will not leave Terrence Steele out there by himself. They will not do the Adrian Claiborne and let the guy attack the quarterback. They're
So
going to help him.
We're not
going to have great help from Zach Martin. It's not the ideal thing, but it's better than the alternative.
What's the alternative?
Not giving him any help.
Okay, you're
Let
right.
him go one-on-one.
So we're not going to see Chaz Green versus Adrian Claiborne.
No, you're
the
not.
Most nightmare game in the history of the Cowboys the last 10 years when Adrian Claiborne's just a guy.
Still
Joey Bosa's a bad man. And Joey Bosa versus 2 guys is still more terrifying than Adrian Claiborne versus most guys. I mean, they put Adrian Claiborne that day into the Hall of Fame. Chaz Green did. I got a bigger concern watching that offensive line, and that's Tyler Biadasz, their second-year center, who was supposed to be drafted out of Wisconsin and be another Wisconsin guy, and Travis Frederick. I got to tell you, after watching that game and then rewatching it, man, he owes Zeke Elliott $1 billion. Tyler Biadasz was bad that game. So now you've got 2 guys that you should be afraid of. Clarence, how many more guys? How can they possibly help 2 guys at the same time who are going to need it on the same game?
That's why Zeke Elliott is the greatest pass blocking running back in the history of NFL football. He's going to Hall of Fame. He's making $90 million as a pass blocking pass pro.
Okay, I like it. So Ezekiel Elliott can't run the ball effectively anymore, and you heard it here on Cowboys Overtime. Longtime Fort Worth Star-Telegram Dallas Cowboys beat writer says Ezekiel Elliott should be on the offensive line. Clarence, why should Zeke Elliott be maybe either a guard or a center? Because you can't run the ball.
He's just a help blocker. He's a help blocker. But seriously, all seriousness aside, Zeke had 11 carries for 33 yards. And we go
He's terrible. He had 1 carry. He had 1 good carry. He had a horrible carry when Blake Jarwin blew his block, and he couldn't beat some backup guy from the practice squad. He couldn't beat him in a one-on-one run there at the 3-yard line, and he had a bad game. But as a blocker, he was Zach Martin. As a runner, he was another guy. The end.
I would say that the game plan was not suited for Zeke Elliott, and the Cowboys moved away from the running game because they didn't think they could run against that defensive line. I don't think that's going to be the game plan going forward. We will see. We can run the stats out there, how much Mike McCarthy likes to throw the ball over running the ball. But Zeke will be effective in other games. But again, I don't think we're going to use that game and how they chose to play that game as a example, exhibit A of this is Zeke's season and this is who Zeke is, and he cannot be an effective runner anymore. That's
Chris Sims. Chris Sims in the Sunday Night Football telecast brought this up, and I make sure to put in Chris Sims because he's a UT guy, right? And he brought it up. He said, they asked, well, who are you looking for? Everybody, Dak. And he said it, Ezekiel Elliott. Last season was the worst of his career, and there were a whole lot of perfectly reasonable excuses why Zeke didn't have a good season. Offensive line was bad. Your starting quarterback's not playing, so all the defense can sell out to stop you, right? Those are all legitimate. Now, his first game, he's got a couple of his offensive linemen back. He's got a quarterback who's throwing it all over the place, and he can't get off any run but one. And Chris Sims' point was, have we seen the last of Ezekiel Elliott as a great NFL player? I'm paraphrasing, because we all see it. The drop happens, and it happens out of nowhere. Mike McCarthy went out of his way. We saw it on Hard Knocks to not have Zeke do anything during training camp, because this is a guy who's led the NFL in touches, I think, like 4 out of the last 5 years. I'm not saying this is going to be the whole season by any stretch, but we would be fooling ourselves to not at least acknowledge – hang on just a second, I'll get you in this minute there, young man. We would be foolish not to acknowledge that this happens to all running backs. It's just a question of when. Yes, you, Mr. Hill in the back. You've had your hand up, sir. Go ahead.
Zeke hasn't played in the preseason the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
Mike McCarthy, how he handled him in preseason, had nothing to do with that.
Okay.
Let me just parse that out.
Parse that out.
Care. They don't use him in the preseason. That had nothing to do with the other. It is. I'm sure Zeke was disappointed. You go into this offseason when let me also put one thing about last year. Last year was the worst of his career by his standards. He averaged 4.0 yards a carry. I mean, people forget that. That's and you know football. That's nothing to see.
That's a big deal. No, 4 yards is legit.
You know, his biggest issue last year was the fumbling.
Yep,
those were the big issues. Well, but he averaged 4.0 yards a carry. That's good stuff. You know, as far as running backs are concerned. But he went into this offseason motivated to be better. He is lighter. He's sleeker. He's in the best shape of his career. And certainly he is motivated to have a big season. The Cowboys believe he will have a big season. I'm just saying we're not going to use game one as a litmus test for that because of the defense they played and how they wanted to attack the game the best way they felt they should win the game.